Good evening, everyone. This is Gus Sentimentus. I am the senior correspondent for cityexplainer.com, and we are live at MICA, the Maryland Institute College of Art, for this evening's Mayoral Candidate Forum. There are 11 candidates who were invited today. The main organization that's organizing this is Citizen Artists Baltimore, which is a community advocacy group that promotes citizen artistry in the city. And then there's other organizations involved in organizing this are the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance, the Maryland Citizens for the Arts, and the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation, and of course MICA. All right, everyone. Sorry about that. Somebody nudged my power strip and shut off my internet access for a few minutes there. So we're back. So this is like I said, a forum organized by Citizen Artists Baltimore. It's a community arts advocacy group with Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance, Maryland Citizens for the Art, and the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation helping to pull off this event tonight. There are a couple hundred people in the room, and there will be 11 candidates on stage. And I think what people want to hear is probably tonight there will be a lot of questions about what are the role of the arts in Baltimore going forward after we've had such a tumultuous year in 2015 with the uprising. There's just incredible violence in the city. Lot of people feeling lots of pain, and everyone sort of wondering if the arts can be a salve for that, and more to really help communities become whole again. So I think a lot of times, there are a lot of these forums that are sort of issue oriented. There have been forums on education, on the environment, public safety, and tonight the candidates are going to be asked questions, obviously about all those topics, I'm sure, but also with arts. There are thousands and thousands of people involved in the arts in Baltimore. Baltimore has Artscape, the biggest free open-air arts festival in the country as it's marketed. So it's a big deal. It's a big part of our cultural identity here, the arts. It's nothing to sneeze at. It drives a lot of goodwill. It drives a lot of economic activity. It contributes to the quality of life in our city. I think we all can, those of us who live in Baltimore and drive around and walk around, can point to a number of wonderful public art examples that give us a distinctive taste of home, give Baltimore real home presence for us. So anyway, so I'm gonna turn off my mic and cut to the stage. Like I said, there are hundreds of people here, including I spy Thomas Dolby, famous 80s pop star and now Hopkins professor. So I think it'll be a good debate. And the hashtags are hashtag #BeMoreVotes and hashtag #BeMoreElection 2016. Use them, ask questions, and let us know what you think about the candidates and their responses, because not only am I watching and I'll retweet, you follow me at City Explainer, but the candidates are watching as well. This is if anything, this is a really unique time in Baltimore where social media is playing a role. Some might think the conventional wisdom is that Baltimore is still a city that you still have to get out the vote and go door to door and shake hands and look at people in the eye, and you're just not going to get a lot of votes if you're on Twitter and Facebook all day. And that's good. That's a good thing. You gotta get out and meet people and earn their trust. So, all right, I think we're going to get started. And thank you very much for coming along for the ride.
Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Sammy Hoy, President of Maryland Institute College of Art, or MICA. I welcome you to MICA, and it's wonderful to see this big crowd showing up this evening. Yes. As we all know, art and culture is a force in the city, and this is proof of that. So thank you so much for being here. MICA partners with the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance, the Maryland Citizens for the Arts, and also the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation to present the first ever Citizen Artist Baltimore Mayoral Forum on Art and Culture. We are hosting this forum because, as we all know here, arts and culture are the heart and soul of the city. And yet, never before have our mayoral candidates come together to present their positions on arts and culture in the city, and also to address the fact that creativity and innovation are important to our diverse citizens and have huge potential to strengthen our city's future. And this is changing right now, tonight, with you. So thank you so much for being here. We'll have a chance to hear the mayoral candidates share with you their care and their vision about the creative community. So let's give all of them a big hand, and then they will join us shortly. We know we'll hear from them on multiple fronts regarding the mayoral arts and culture agenda. We know that the must be an integral part of our school curriculum citywide. Just to hit a point home, this is what a 2012 National Endowment on the Arts report on the arts and at-risk youth says. Teenagers from low socioeconomic status who don't have access to art have a 5 times higher chance of dropping out of school. Studies also show that students in art outperform their non-art peers on the SAT by 96 points, while a child who has continued access to art education has a 74% higher chance of planning to attend college. We own our youth that better future. Making experiencing art also has the power to build community cohesion and empower our citizenry. You see signs of it all over the city, where there are performing arts in the community and where there are murals. There's also beauty, hope, discourse, and empowerment, and we need more. And of course, arts and culture are economic drivers in Baltimore. You'll hear some figures later on this evening. The richness and diversity in our creative capital are a native strength of Baltimore. Growing an equitable creative economy should be a major strategy for our city's renaissance. To fulfill the promise of Baltimore, the city we love, our new mayor to embrace the arts in the city's agenda deeply and broadly, ensuring that creativity and opportunity is built into every individual life in a truly inclusive manner. This evening, we'll hear each participating mayoral candidate, his or her vision regarding arts and culture in the city. I urge everyone in this room to be counted and to vote after you hear tonight's presentations. Please take the pledge right now and register at citizenartist.vote. You can do everything right there. Showing up tonight is great, but showing up at the voting booth is even better. And let's show our new mayor the power of the creative community of Baltimore. Thank you so much for being here. Now it's my pleasure to yield the podium over to Jeannie Howe, Executive Director of the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance.
Thank you, Sammy. We so appreciate your partnership and the important part that Maryland Institute College of Art plays in Baltimore and the region and the world. We're so excited for the opportunity to be engaging the mayoral candidates. Baltimore's next mayor will be expanding and working on the work begun in earlier administrations, including our current mayor, Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, and the work that Baltimore Office of Promotion in the Arts does here in Baltimore. I want to take just a Baltimore Cultural Alliance and to recognize the Citizen Artists Baltimore Steering Committee, which has really put together a process and listening process with the community and this session tonight. We'll see a slide of that group in just a moment. Throughout the month of January, this broad-based group led 7 listening sessions throughout Baltimore and conducted online surveys with hundreds of voters. The purpose was to learn which priorities Baltimore's creative communities wanted to convey to the next mayor. The result of these surveys and sessions formed the basis for the questions that will be asked by arts voters here this evening. These questions reflect what we heard from you, citizen artists of Baltimore. Some questions will be for all candidates, just a little procedural conversation here. Some questions will be for all candidates, all will be segmented, others will be segmented, but each will have equal time in which to share their position. And to help us out, we have a timekeeper in the audience, and we're hoping that will help everybody just move in space in a really great way. In our brief time together tonight, you'll learn more about where the candidates stand, and you can find a full report on the listening sessions and the candidate responses to our questionnaire at citizenartists.com. So take a look at that website. Before we begin, I also would like to say thank you to each of the candidates who have joined us this evening. Thank you so much for being here. Sammy, let's begin.
So I have the honor to present the first question. Several of you have outlined plans to invigorate and refocus city art to build a more vibrant and connected city. What specific actions would you take in your first 100 days as mayor to provide support and resources to the creative community?
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity by the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance. I would start off with first extending and doubling. I created the Creative Baltimore Fund. And in creating that fund, which provides general operating grants to nonprofit cultural organizations and individual artists to support Baltimore arts. And currently, I would double that funding for grants up to $500,000. Secondly, something that I did as an executive order, for every development project in Baltimore, 1% is supposed to go for art. I don't know if that's happening now. It should be, but that would definitely be enforced. I would expand the mural program. And last but not least, the young lady who walked in with me, one of the things that you'll see in my plan that I have on my website, Sheila Dixon for Mayor.com, is how to create community schools and enhance extracurricular activities for all children so they can get exposed beyond the school day in order to enhance their lives and be able to have the opportunity to be exposed to many aspects of art in our community. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I'm Elizabeth Embry, and I first want to say thank you to Citizen Artists and to GBCA and Maryland Citizens and the Deutsche Foundation for putting this on. I think this is really exciting that there's a voice for artists, a political voice in this election. It's wonderful. So I'm not going to wait for the first 100 days. I'm going to take advantage of the time from the election on to work as an artist and the groups represented to build what will become a city arts council and use that body to develop a cultural plan for how we spend money on the arts in the city, because we do spend money. Yep. We just don't do it with any kind of strategic plan that includes artists and includes in communities and how we allocate resources. And I also, as part of that plan, will be making sure that our public school students the high-quality arts education that is required by law, by regulation in COMAR, and that is so necessary and vital for their development in their life. And that will be something I will begin, as I said, even before taking office, but certainly in the first 100 days, nail down with the school system the expectations of my expectations, of administration's expectations, that every school child in this city have access to high-quality arts education. And one of the things I want to do immediately is signal the way that arts will be represented and integrated throughout my administration by having artist works featured on the city website, by sending out an Instagram a day of an artist's work, a local artist's work in Baltimore, and also creating a cabinet level position so that I have representation at the senior staff level in the arts. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Gutierrez, and in addition to being a candidate for mayor, I'm also a longtime champion of the arts. For those of you that don't know, I do have a song out that I wrote and recorded, and I just want to set the record straight because I've said this at every event, and I started to get the feeling that people weren't taking me seriously. So it is a real song. It is available. It's got verses and a chorus and a nice reggae hook to it. So please take a look at it when you get a chance. The first 100 days as mayor, what I will do is I will commission full-scale, independent, and financial audits of every city agency, because in order for us to know how we can dedicate support and resources to the community, which is the backbone of my entire administration, we need to know where those resources are, and we need to establish a proper foundation for a well-run, competent, efficient city government, and then we'll be able to empower communities like yours to thrive. While those audits are going on, I want to commission a Mayoral Summit on Arts and Culture, where I will invite members of the arts community, along with city employees, students, and anyone else who's interested, to come together. And during that summit, we're going to discuss what we want our city to be from an arts and culture standpoint. We're going to develop a vision, we're going to develop a mission, and we're going to come up with core values and specific programs that we can do to support that vision. And then it is my expectation that at the end of that summit, we will roll up our sleeves and get to work on making those things a reality. Thank you.
So as we know, Baltimore is a city rich in history and culture. And when I think about art, I'm reminded that it is a reflection of so many things. It's a reflection of our lived reality. Confront the things that are happening in community, and also a reflection of our hopes and dreams. I'm excited to be here today and thankful to be a part of this conversation. In the platform that I'll outline, there's an entire platform specifically about arts and culture where I answer this question about the first 100 days. And there are 5 key components. One is to establish the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture that has a specific focus on equity, and how do we make sure that we target communities traditionally underrepresented in the arts community. When we think about the arts community as so diverse, it is about the skateboarders and the muralists as much as it's about the dirt bike and so many other street artists here in the city. It's also a focus on a citywide cultural arts plan and policy that's never existed on that. And then making sure that we are really intentional about community-based arts and focus on to that, and then access to capital. So making sure that there is funding that is equitable. There are funding streams in the city, and most of you know about them. But what we don't have yet is a strategy that creates access to those funding streams, especially for artists from underrepresented communities. And then the last is a focused, coordinated arts education program that links arts programs to classrooms and teachers in a way that makes sense. Thank you for the conversation.
One thing that makes cities unique, other than towns and other municipalities, is the arts. And Baltimore City is no stranger to that. The arts and culture and history are directly tied to who we are and what we mean, not only to the state of Maryland, but to the United States. As the next mayor of Baltimore, in my first 100 days, I will make a strong commitment to ensuring that we do that by establishing an arts council to ensure that we have equity fair and across our city, specifically with our institutions that have been underrepresented for quite some time. We will also do the capital improvement planning money to ensure that we have the monies and the energy around developing synergies associated with these institutions and our schools through after-school programming. Then lastly, we will also ensure that we will develop tax abatement initiatives throughout the city of Baltimore, establishing in different communities to allow those communities the ability to take advantage of blight to create cultural and art institutions inside of the neighborhoods.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Art and culture has been a part of the fabric of Baltimore for decades. And what we want to do is make sure that we don't leave out what we're doing. We've done some great things here in Baltimore. The Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts, about the entertainment, arts and entertainment districts. I'd love to see us expand those. It is a city of opportunity, but that has not equalized opportunities across the board. And so we want to be more inclusive as we move forward in Baltimore, looking at some of the museums and so forth that have been left out culturally and those opportunities. I have worked tirelessly with the various arts communities here in Baltimore. It was through the Fish Out of Water project or the creation of the Baltimore Design School. I feel that as we continue to move Baltimore forward, that us working together, even in the first 100 days, looking at how do we make sure that art and culture is infused in our curriculums throughout our city. Because our children, as you have learned, will do better when we infuse arts and culture inside of our classrooms. Look forward to working with you all and continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cindy Walsh, and I'm the one candidate in this race that will do something entirely different. I see global corporations and attached to every one of our public agencies, and that includes the arts. I will remove those global corporations and rebuild all of our agencies out into the community where we can build oversight and accountability and all of the fraud and corruption, and all of the corporate subsidy, and start developing a budget that will almost double. You'll get $1 billion, maybe $2 billion. If you do that, you can send that to the communities. And if you are a community person, as I am, those funds will go into growing the art community in the communities themselves, local economies, small businesses for the arts, public projects for the arts. You won't have that if you keep allowing global corporations to control the system within the agency. They always go towards industrializing our arts, and there funding as that goes on. There isn't that value of public art. I encourage this approach, and I thank you for your time.
Arts have always been a critically important part of my personal life. I remember when I was 10 years old, I sat on the knee of Alexander Calder, and I looked at his hands, and his hands were the hands of a founder, a guy that worked with metal. And throughout my life, I've collected art. I've been on the board of the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum and the BMA. In my first 100 days, I'll do two things specifically. One, we will do audits North Avenue so that we know exactly how much money we can direct and fully fund arts education. We spend way too much money on North Avenue and not enough money in our classroom, and I know that through the arts programs that we've been putting in place at Green Street Academy, the charter school that I started. I will cabinet level person that's focused on the arts. And the other thing that we're going to be is inclusive. Because one of the most proud things I've done in the last 10 years is the Warnock Foundation's involvement in local artists. When I think of what Richard Best is doing in Section 1, when I think of what Rebecca and Allison have done with the CSA for local arts, I think about the fact that I was so proud to put the first dollar in the City Light City Festival. I mean, the talent that resides in this town that we can coalesce around creating a great cultural environment in Baltimore is one of the most exciting things that I'm looking forward to in my administration. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Wilton Wilson. I'm from Jamaica, and I grew up in this kind of environment, so this is no stranger to me. What is really funny to me is that there's so much resource in this city, but yet the city local government does not really participate hands-on in this kind of environment. If I become mayor of this city, I definitely form a contract with this community to make sure this community grows. This community can establish a foundation to let people know about this city. So the three things that I would make sure with this city, we have to make the city safe. Once we make this city safe, we can attract visitors to come to this city. It doesn't make sense if we have artists in this city cannot sell their product or get exposure. So we have to get involved as the mayor of this city and have first hand on every activity that participate in this kind of activity. So what I'm saying to you is that as mayor, the first 100 days, I would make sure this is one of my top priority. This is my heart. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Calvin Young. I'm a candidate for mayor, born and raised here in Baltimore. It's exciting to be here with you, and I thank you for your time. And to speak specifically about my first 100 days, I want to go first that audits is extremely important for our city. So for me, if elected mayor, that's one of the #1 things that I do. Specifically because, as you heard before, arts education is critically important. For me as an engineer, I know that to be an engineer, to be a great creative mind, you have to have an artist mind. The greatest creative minds had some sort of art or humanities background. So you're going to see that from me. But also when we do audits, it's not just in education, specifically in other things like investments into museums. One great example is the Great Blacks and Wax Museum, which is about to undergo renovations, but fundraising is a big challenge for them. Yeah. And the city can help, such that organizations like that can be there for our children. And the final thing that I also want to say to our kids, we recently saw the city council do a veto override for 3% of the city budget going towards youth programs. I want to make sure that at least $10 million of that, or a third of that, is going towards arts education, so that we can make sure that our kids are getting what we got when we were coming up. Thank you very much. I look forward to the rest of the questions.
Thank you all very much. Our next question is going to be asked by Denise Johnson, who is the Director of Culture Works and also a member of the Citizen Artists Baltimore Steering Committee. Denise?
We want to welcome Mr. Joshua Harris. The second question is for Mr. Warnock, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Walsh. You each have 1.5 minutes to answer. The Baltimore arts ecosystem is home to a wide array of important organizations large to small. What are the two most important steps you would take as a mayor to ensure that your annual budget results in stable and equitable funding, fairly benefit communities of color? Would you like for me to repeat the question? Mr. Warnock?
Sure, I'm happy to start. The two most important steps are, first and foremost, we have to have audits of municipal functions, and particularly North Avenue, because the reality is, you know, slightly more than half of the money that comes to North Avenue ends up in the classroom. And one of the things that's absolutely important for us to fund education, arts education in particular, throughout our city, is to make sure that we have a handle on the financing that we have at North Avenue so that we can redirect those into our classrooms. Another thing is we need to have equitable funding. You know, Calvin talked about the Great Blacks and Wax Museum and that amazingly important expansion of that museum. That's a museum that we need to get behind in city government because it is a true icon in our community. And it's also a place that brings tourists to our city. So we understand that arts education, arts is a key driver of our economy in Baltimore. And one of the things that I fully appreciate and will make sure that we have funding for is arts education and understanding the important role that arts have through our city to driving business and driving tourism and driving the cultural that brings people to live and stay in Baltimore and raise their kids here.
Thank you. Mr. Harris?
There are two visions of One Baltimore. One is a vision of a master plan where Baltimore is an international economic zone with global corporate campuses. Mine is a vision of One Baltimore for the citizens who live here. And with that vision comes rebuilding all of our communities as they are for the people who are in the communities. And that means building Baltimore as a small business economy, disconnecting it from all of the Wall Street and the global economy that gives booms and busts and keeps us stagnant and unable to develop small businesses. If you're committed to that, and if you're committed to equal protection and the idea of opportunity for civil rights, you're going to be sending that funding to all communities, and that includes communities of color, and it will be connected to the arts and technology, small business organizations and businesses. You will have a friend in me with small businesses. People of color will have friends with me, and we will inject the money into our public school system that will make our humanities, arts strong. And they will be staffed with people from the art teachers, the music teachers, and not only augmented, and then just simply augmented by the nonprofits. We need to make that distinction because people want to be hired as a career person within their community in the schools.
Thank you.
Well, the single greatest issue in Baltimore, of course, is said several times, is distribution of capital, or the lack thereof. And we've seen after administration, the only places those funds have been allocated are down the harbor. That's resulted in what we see as two Baltimores. And just like with Baltimore, there's also two art communities that exist here. There's one that is valued and one that is not. And so under my administration, we would shift towards actually valuing the art, culture, and community that is undervalued right now. Just a couple years ago, I founded an organization called Holland's Creative Placemaking that has a strategic focus on creating urban revitalization, using arts as a catalyst. Basically, how we use the stories and the art that exists in communities to spur economic investment, economic development, not to bring in outside art or contemporary art as it would be viewed, but value the art that already exists in those communities and invest in it. And so just a couple Baltimore City Transit Administration received a $200,000 art place grant. And what they funds for with that grant was to bring in musicians from Germany to play on the light rail and on the bus systems. We have more than enough artists here in Baltimore City that should be valued and invested. So as such, one of my focuses would actually be establishing a cabinet-level arts and culture position from the mayor's office. We are valuing the art that exists in the communities right now and focusing on developing and investing in the other Baltimore and the other arts community as well.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be asked by who is a performer, co-founder of the Youth Resiliency Institute, and a member of the Citizen Artists Baltimore Steering Committee.
Thank you, David Warnock had to leave, so we want to thank him for coming. The third question is for Catherine Pugh, Nick Mosby, Calvin Young, and Patrick Gutierrez. You each have 1.5 minutes to answer. The arts and culture sector unique and powerful opportunities for healing, change, and building community. Such resources are critically needed to address Baltimore's current challenges. How will you look to partner with artists, organizations, and your administration to create employment opportunities for artists, cultural organizations, and/or cultural groups across Baltimore City government and to address community needs? Catherine Pugh.
Thank you. First, let me just say that one of the things that I've already done was Senate Bill 412, because I believe that those who have talent should be able to go into our classrooms and teach and share their arts with our young people. And so I created a special so that those individuals can be certified as teachers without going through a long process and be able to share with the individuals in our school, therefore creating job opportunities for them as well. The other thing that we created some time ago was street performing art, and we didn't quite get it off the ground, but I think that if we infuse some capital into that project, we'll get an opportunity to display talents in our schools and corners of our streets. The other issue that I want us to focus on is how do we create more artists and support in our city. And so by creating a fund for artist development, we'll do that so that we can not only infuse those opportunities for our young people, but create opportunities for those who want to work in the arts field to be able to do so. We also want to look at how do we expand art throughout our city through our mural program or the other efforts to include other young people, and then also to make sure that looking inclusively across the city as it relates to the various museums and opening them up to the public and having them to share with the individuals the art that is throughout our community and throughout our cities. Thank you.
It's important for us to invest and focus on things that are working, that have been working. Here in the city of Baltimore, product of Baltimore City Public School System, I had the ability of participating at Super Saturdays and at Chinquapin with Twigs, and I was all for it. But there's programs out there that we know that work and that have been around for a very long time. The city has to do a much better job of focusing on those programs and expanding it to our children throughout Baltimore and leveraging after-school funding to do so. Secondly, I think that when we talk about public subsidy projects, they should have requirements that are built into them for local artists. When we talk about a new hotel or the convention center or anything that has come in the 10 or 15 or 20 years, imagine if we allowed the artwork inside of those buildings to be directly to local artists and allow for that competition to open up for Baltimore City residents. A lot of times, unfortunately, when we talk about the art, our current budget, but a lot of times we can leverage institutions. Imagine if we partnered with Johns Hopkins, other large institutions as it relates to their new build-outs, ensuring that folks had the ability of participating. And lastly, ensuring that we have placemaking all throughout our communities that are made up by artists in those communities, led by trained artists throughout the city of Baltimore. We have a tremendous amount of artists here in the city of Baltimore. We have to do a much better job of leveraging that.
One of the things I first want to echo what Senator Pugh said as far as certification for teachers. I think it's a great idea. Now, I think about my niece, and I take her to school every day. And I remember driving her to school one day. Calvin, can you put on Moonlight Sonata? I'm like, what do you know about Beethoven? She learned it in school because there were teachers who were artists, and they had that experience and exposed that to her. So I want to make sure that happens for every child in the city of Baltimore. But when it comes to other education, employment opportunities, small business growth is something that I'm a champion of. Some of my background, I worked at the White House where I focused on small new net job growth in this country come from small businesses. Over 50% of people who are hired in small businesses. Places like Baltimore, there's an even more outsized effect because we don't have a lot of large businesses like Bethlehem Steel here to hire a lot of people. So the challenge to small business growth is access to capital, getting the resources, and also the wraparound services. Those things are specific places where the municipality or our city can invest. We can create microfinancing loans for small business owners, for artists who want to create coffee shops and an entire tech hub. We can create incubator space. We have a lot of abandoned buildings. Let's take some of those. Let's get artists who want to start businesses and who want to do things, and let's give them free space provided by the city so that they can grow, they can thrive. These things are possible, but it takes the right leadership. I know my time is up, so I'll say thank you for that.
I think one of the things that we can focus on that I'm really excited about is using our existing physical spaces to their maximum capabilities. So we have a lot of buildings that are city schools and otherwise that are available when school's not in session. And we also have a community of content providers who want to provide arts, and then we also have an incredible amount of customers who want arts for their kids. So why not open up those buildings after school hours to allow content providers to come in and teach to students or anybody who wants to learn? If we can do that either as a revenue generating stream or to provide those services to underserved communities, it's a win-win situation. So that's one of the things that we're really excited about in my administration, if I'm elected, is utilizing our buildings to their maximum capabilities to be able to provide jobs for people who have content they want to provide. And the other thing we want to do, and it was echoed earlier, is we want to make sure that we are hiring local, qualified people who live here to provide these services. I was talking to another recently who was having an event, and they were spending $4,000 on travel alone for their entertainment. $4,000 to bring somebody in from somewhere else to entertain city residents when we have so many talented people who would do a much better job, and then use that money where it needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be asked by Crystal Williams and Jock Thompson. Crystal is a band teacher at Western High School. She's a musician. She's the parent mom of a Baltimore City Public student. And Jacques is a student in Baltimore City Public Schools, and he is also a cultural for the Youth Resiliency Institute. Crystal and Jacques.
The next question for all of the candidates. You each have 1.5 minutes to answer. The State Board of Education has adopted the goal that 100% of Maryland students will participate in fine arts programs. While many Maryland schools have excellent arts education programs, this is not the case in high poverty areas of Baltimore City, where programs are often non-existent. A substantial body of research links arts involvement with improved cognitive development, academic performance, and lower dropout rates.
As mayor, what will you do to ensure equitable access to consistent education in music, visual arts, as well as theater and dance, taught by qualified professionals in all Baltimore City public schools? This time, let's start with Calvin Young.
Wonderful. You know, I spoke to you about my niece. I'll give you another story about me. When my first, one of my college credits was in opera class, and I remember going to opera class, and I'm a black kid from Baltimore. I've never been to the opera before. I fell in love with it. So, you know, making sure that kids have, you know, this opportunity is critically important to me. You know, and I spoke about, you know, 1/3 of, you know, the $30 million that's going towards youth programs, going specifically towards, you know, arts education. You know, what I know, you know, from my background as a former national chairperson of the National Society of Black Engineers, is that with only $250,000, we could 300 kids to science and education. And what we do in those programs is it's not just, you know, tech, but kids are being creative. We're giving them a science project, but we're telling them to use your own mind. You know, be artists. First they have to draw it out, and then from there we teach them the technical skills, and they merge what they've learned and what they've designed with what they can build. I want to be able to do that. Give me $10 million, and I will give you 10,000 kids who will be excited and exposed to the arts, to science, and engineering. That's what I'm going to do as mayor.
It is important to get the best people who are available to teach the art in our community. So the first thing you have to have good benefits to attract good people, professional people. The second thing you have to do is you have to make the community safe. If you have good benefits and you have a safe environment, you'll get the best professional out there. They will come, give them good salary, and they will come. The reward will be great for this. So it's important to do that. You have to have adequate funding and resource when you have these professionals in. That means you have everything available for them firsthand. And next, you have to have good mentor, you know, to help along with the process. And you cannot forget the at-risk youth and the juvenile that are re-entering, going to jail. We have to cut that cycle. So we can't let them out either. So we have to have target programs to facilitate at-risk youth, even the juveniles who are coming out of jail, to make sure they build their self-esteem. So we have to have good benefits to attract good people. We have to have a safe environment to attract good people, and we have to have the resource available when they here to teach our youth. They don't have no obstacle in the way. Thank you.
Baltimore has a history of Maryland failing to send our federal funds for education to Baltimore. We know that $1 billion was not distributed. When it does come, it is sometimes misappropriated and lost to corruption. So anybody who is passionate about equal protection and opportunity and access and is willing to fight to bring those funds to Baltimore, and that is me, that's where you start to make sure that that happens. The second thing that is happening in the city is that we are having corporate charters that are putting vocational K through 12 that will squeeze out all of our arts and humanities. It will. They'll stop the funding, and it will particularly hurt the communities of color and special needs and the poor. So I am ending the corporate charters, the corporate connection, and making our public schools strong.
Again, the reason that I wrote and passed Senate Bill 412 is because I realized that we have such a creative arts community. And because I was working with some great folks in this community to start the Baltimore School, I knew that all the types of teachers that we needed to be in that classroom were our arts and cultural community. I partnered with one of the largest great institutions here in this city to help make that dream become a reality, the Baltimore Design School. That certification that I put in place allows artists with their talents to come inside the classroom and to share that with our young people. The other issue here is the funding. This is where the mayor leads and sets the tone. We have so many philanthropic and private businesses in this city that contribute to our school system, and it's an unequal distribution. So this again is where the mayor leads, where we put that pool of money into an effort to make sure that education and the opportunities to view art in the city by our young people are fused through the system, and that they not only get to go to the Baltimore Museum of Art or the Walters Art Gallery, but they too also get to visit the Arena Playhouse or Blacks in Wax and those other institutions across the board. Because what we'll learn is that when we share opportunities and diversity and inclusion, not only does our art community stand to gain, but all of us too.
Equitable access is one thing, but equitable development is another. And if you do not have the development, you can't take advantage of the access. And so I'm going to constantly talk about in these forums. We need an administration to go into City Hall to ensure that we develop true lead abatement policies in the city of Baltimore. The fact that we have hundreds of kids in East and West Baltimore every single year who are unable to develop in the appropriate fashion is unacceptable and unconscionable. So as the next mayor of Baltimore, I will aggressively go after lead paint poisoning to ensure children are developing right to access the arts efficiently. Now, I talked to you earlier about my role in growing up in the city of Baltimore and being a member of Twigs. I think there's a huge opportunity, again, for the school system to tie our after-school programming directly to the performing and visual arts through Baltimoreans who are in the artist arena. So the fact that we don't have additional money associated for our schools is something that we can leverage to do that. And then lastly, as the next mayor of Baltimore, I will establish a mayor's office of educational reform to ensure that across the board we're providing equitable access associated with the arts in our elementary, middle, and high schools.
So much of my thinking on this is my work as a teacher, as someone who has led after-school programs, both here and in New York City, and then my other work working with kids. I've seen so many kids need to unlock their gifts, find their stories, and tell those stories, and art has been a powerful way for them to do that. And the platform that I put forth, I offer a coordinated arts education strategy, and that will focus on a whole host of things, some of which will be making sure that we coordinate resources, because there's so many here. Also pushing on what is an artist. I think about when I was in classrooms, the way that we thought about the access to art was really limited. It was fine arts was the only thing that people thought of as art. And we need to expand that notion because there's so many other ways that kids get their gifts out. And And the other thing is I think about creating pipelines to the classroom for our educators. Pipelines also to after-school programs. The after-school program that I operated out of Ashburton Elementary School, we struggled sometimes to find art educators, and it was hard because we're in a city with so many artists, and we can actually make that work for people. The other thing that I'll add is to deepen the partnerships with our institutions that already exist. There's phenomenal programming in all of the colleges and universities here. It's not easy is for people in classrooms to access that. It's not necessarily a resource problem. There's no strategy, and I'll bring the strategy.
So coupled with arts, I'd also like to include in that sports, because our programming at our recreation center for sports is vital and important as well. And for me, my art was basketball. And if it wasn't for a recreation center being funded for me to go and be able to play there, who knows where I would be at today. And I didn't start playing organized basketball until much later. I went on to play college ball. That's the only reason I went to college. And so exposing our youth to these opportunities. My friend, his was music. And so had it not been for that, he would not have gone on to college to pursue a college education and degree. Understanding that we have to make sure that we're investing in exposing our young people to these opportunities, because it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Secondly, I believe that we can use arts that exist to create urban revitalization in our communities. There are amazing examples that we can look at all across the country, across the world for that matter. You can look at the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative up in Boston. You can look at Louisville, what they're doing to combine access to food and healthy produce in Baltimore, in Louisville, and we can use those examples as models to tackle some of the exact same issues. And lastly, if we value the art that exists within our community, we can use it to have equitable development. And so what my organization does is focus on urban revitalization, urban renewal, using arts as a catalyst while minimizing cultural displacement. Because the thing that brings together is the arts. And so when we come together, we can really start to recognize that we have much more in common than we have different, and we can ensure that the people that exist in communities are no longer just pushed out and displaced, and will begin to be in the business of creating solutions to problems rather than just displacing them.
So this is a perfect example of running for mayor, because I believe we deserve results, not ideas. And what we're seeing far too often is too many ideas that have not yielded actual results. The fact that we have a decree that all of our schools should be given arts education and that they're not is simply unacceptable to me. But yet it's going on now and nothing's happening. So what I will do is what I've done my entire career, which is institute a culture of performance-based management in every city department to ensure that once goals are established, we are working with the departments to ensure they have the tools, the training, and the resources to meet those goals, and then we're going to hold them accountable to make sure that they meet those goals. Because unacceptable to continue to put forth idea after idea without yielding actual results. And that's the key piece that's been missing from city government all these years, because all these ideas are reliant on people to execute them, to give you the results that you're looking for. And if those people are not properly trained, if they're not properly equipped, if they're not inspired, if they're not motivated, and if they're not held accountable to do the jobs that we're paying them to do, then we're going to continue to see the lack of results. That's why I'm running for mayor, so that I can change that and we can start to see results. Thank you.
So my three sisters and I went to public schools, and our arts education was so poor, so non-existent, that my mother was so frustrated that she has now spent the last 30 years running a nonprofit called Arts Education in Maryland Schools to build grassroots support among parents and teachers to make sure that that doesn't happen to other kids, and to make sure that public school students across the state had access to arts education. Because it's not just important for their development, but it's an issue of social justice and of equity. And Baltimore City students should not be penalized for being in a system that's poorer and less resourced than other jurisdictions. So I want to do 4 very specific things to make sure that changes in Baltimore once and for all. The first is to immediately engage the school system and create a cultural plan and a plan for how to put a teacher, an arts education teacher, multiple teachers in every school so that every child has high quality arts education in the city. And that also includes having arts integrated into other disciplines like math and like reading and English and science, because it enriches all of the subject areas. And the other piece of that is, Mayor, I will help recruit and support arts teachers. So we are drawing the best local talent into our schools and making it as easy and supported as possible for artists to become teachers in our schools. I will ensure that the school system is fully funded so that it has the resources to provide arts education. And I will work with the school system to make sure that we are tracking it so that we have data so that we know on a daily basis, a weekly basis, that this is happening. And finally, I'll work out of school time is equally important in making sure that we're partnering with advocacy organizations, nonprofits, and institutions to fully engage them and make sure they are coordinated so there are no service. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go back a little further than Elizabeth, and I'm a product of Baltimore City Public Schools along with my sisters and brothers, and we had extensive art and programs within our school from elementary, mid, junior high, that ages me, and music, theater, drama, dance, etc. I mean, my rhythm was in dance and theater. So here's the difference. Here's the problem. Fast forward. The city doesn't control the schools. First, we need to control the schools again. Secondly, we need to take authority over the schools, go back to some basic fundamental things that need to happen. We need to get out of testing and teaching and get back to teaching and incorporating within the programs art and culture with reading, writing, arithmetic, and literature. Now, only teach for testing. So we've got to go back and take control of this. And while taking the schools back, because we have to go to the state and introduce legislation, which is already in the process, in the meantime, I'm going to expand my community schools that I've begun to work on and create after school. The school day has to be long. In the 21st century, it's not like I was when I could go home for lunch. Kids need to be in school and provide those extracurricular activities in the class with professional artists to partner with us. Many of you in this room and many of the forums that we participated in want to be a part of city government and the city moving forward. And here's a great opportunity for us to partner and really expand upon what we need to do to incorporate art in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This seems like a good time to just recognize our youth ambassadors. You may have seen some young people who have these yellow buttons on. They've been helping us tonight and were escorts for in welcoming our candidates as they came in this evening. So I just want to say to Zoe Jackson, to Cameron Howell, to Brianna Layton, Tylandis Lawson, Erin Jones, Viv Furley, there's a lot of them, Lydia Morrow, Jock Thompson, who you heard speaking, Mariah McKenzie, Ifeteo Kikwala. Thank you so much for helping. And they can tell you about the importance of arts education. It's now my pleasure to introduce the person who will ask the next question, and that is Julia Marchiari Alexander, who is the director of the Walter Museum. She is also on the board of Maryland Citizens for the Arts and is the board president at the Greater Cultural Alliance, so my boss. Welcome, Julia.
Good evening. This question is for Sheila Dixon, Wilton Wilson, Elizabeth Embry, and DeRay McKesson. According to Americans for the Arts and culture industry in Baltimore generates $388.2 million in total economic activity, 9,505 full-time equivalent jobs, and generates $260.4 million in household income to local residents. It also delivers $33.9 million in local and state government revenue. How will you include a range of artists and arts organizations in setting the policy for the arts and culture sector? Will you develop a cultural plan for the arts, and if so, what strategies will it deploy? We'll begin with DeRay McKesson, please.
So when I put together the platform, I was really thoughtful of making sure that we include our pillars. So there are 8 buckets in the platform, and arts and culture is centered because we know that the arts are such a key part of the city. When we think about it, what I've already noted is making sure that there's a cultural plan and an equity plan centered in what we'll do, and also thinking about how we make sure that we include artists of a range of communities and from diverse perspectives. I think we have a unique opportunity with all of our school buildings to make sure that public art is centered in those buildings. Also boosting the 1% set aside for developers, 2% set aside for public funds and public art. And then thinking about how we use tax credits and things like that for affordable housing for artists. And then recognizing, like I said before, that art is so many things. So when we exclude street artists, blues, when we don't think about dirt bikes and muralists, we are not really being inclusive in the arts community. The plan that you'll see, there's a whole section about an equity plan, because I think that this is a key priority, and that is what I'm committing to do in the first 100 days.
Elizabeth Embry.
Thank you. So I have either been at or had representation in listening sessions, and I've also convened groups of artists to help inform my policy. And conversations. My cultural plan will draw on a few key values. One is transparency. We do not have transparent systems in this city, either before or after when selections are made. The other is really truly valuing local artists. And understanding that and making that real in the cultural plan, whether it's having artists in residence in neighborhoods, in community schools, in 21st century school buildings really have not only high quality facilities, but also have artists in residence. It's also about building on what exists. Citizen Artists has brought together all of these people from across the city who care about and are knowledgeable about the arts, and so it's using that as a base for developing an art council to build that cultural plan for the city. The other piece is really recognizing that our 1% for the arts has not been effective, has not been implemented, and making sure that it truly is, that we're spending money in every development on the arts. And the final piece is protecting art. There was a great article, but a terrible story in The Sun about the fact that art belonging to the school system is just disappeared, and no one is keeping track of it. That will not happen. Administration. We will not only know, but we will track down missing art and make sure that, a lot of these works of art are really important works by local artists, especially when they were young and developing. They're critical parts of our history, and it's really tragic that this has been allowed to happen. It's something that I'm committed to stopping. Thank you.
Wilton Wilson.
Thank you. The impact that art culture can do to this city can be much more better. It has no limit. In my opinion, it has no limit. So we have to have a better accountability by the mayor. The mayor is responsible to show And once the mayor showcases the city, then everything can fall into place. So the best thing to do is to form a committee that represent all the different culture and different parts of this community. Once you do, put them together and form a committee, and we come up with a great plan. The mayor does not know everything. So you want to make sure everybody is included in all this decision making. And once we do that, we can have a collaborative agreement. And so everybody and every sector is responsible to let us grow in the right direction. And that's why I think that be not a politician and have this narrow-minded. You have to step outside the box. Politicians in this city, they can't step outside the box for some reason. I don't know why not. You know, so we need new people. Mr. Young, me, and somebody else. That's what we need. Thank you.
And Sheila Dixon.
I appreciate this. You know, I come from a, I thought that was funny too. But I come from a cooperative concept where I used to set up co-ops, food co-ops, collaborating, bringing people together for one cause. And the same way that I had created the Creative Baltimore Fund, and I made a commitment that I would double. The same thing that I did with the 1% for art and every development, and my administration, we did move forward with that, as well as the Cultural Tourism Board. But also, we have a lot of commissions, and one of the things that we have to do within our commissions is we have to make sure that we're so it doesn't matter the type of commission that it is, you want to involve artists in all of the commissions so that when you issues, the same thing with a business person you want to include, or an educator you want to include on all of your boards, so that when you look at an issue, you just don't look at it one way. You try to look at it so that you can have a broad perspective and think out of the box and not be focused. And so I will definitely be inclusive in all of my boards and commissions, and I'm going to go to our community, get your input across the board from around the city. One of the things that we have to do is we have to open the doors to citizens across the city, from Sandtown to Park Heights to Fells Point to Canton, and that's one of the weaknesses that we have in Baltimore. We have the ingredients, but what has to happen is we have to assess it, and we have to open those doors and invite in and welcome them to be a part of the process.
We have such an interesting crew backstage. I keep missing that cue. Thank you again. Our last question will be asked by Philip, who is also on the, you'll see a theme emerging, Citizen Artist Baltimore Steering Committee. And CJ is the director and founder of Be More Dance and Be More. Excuse me, CJ.
Hello, everyone. This next question is for all of our candidates, and we'll start at the far end with Calvin Young. We need a champion of the arts. Please finish this sentence. I ask for your vote as an arts champion because
education is key. And arts education is key. For me, I spoke about my background in science and technology. And you know, a lot of people talk about STEM. And it's changing to STEAM. And I said it shouldn't be STEAM, it should really be STEM, because the arts have to come first. I ask for your vote as a champion for the arts because academic success, creativity, and critical thinking all come from a strong foundation in the arts. My name is Calvin Young. You can find more about me at electcalvinyoung.com. Thank you so much.
Again, my name is Wilton Wilson, and I can think outside the box. Believe me. As mayor, I will do anything to make sure this city grow. Now, I came from Jamaica and came to this city to go to school, and I graduated from Johns Hopkins University, and I'm still here. I have a background in accounting, so budget is not a problem for me. So when you consider voting, please consider Wilton Wilson. I'm part of the art. That's what I grew up with. That's what I know. That's what I will expand on. So I'm asking for your vote. Vote Wilton Wilson. Thank you.
Emerging technology, this is a critical point. We have in Baltimore a powerful global health corporation, and we have global education corporations, all of which are developing infrastructure that is going to consume high-speed internet. Our broadband stations are being connected to this. And if you are a small business technology person, you are going to have problems if you do not have Cindy Walsh for mayor, who is going to make sure that our conduit is connected with small business technology, high-speed businesses who are going to keep that availability for our local businesses, our small business technology businesses. And this is key. It is key to the future, and that's why we have to go with a small business economy and keep that global corporate control at bay.
Thank you,
Cindy
Ms.
Walsh for Mayor of Baltimore.
I ask you to vote for me because as passionate as each of you are about the arts, so am I. And I've demonstrated that over the years, whether creating the street performance program or the Fish Out of Water project, where we raised the millions and wired the classrooms and provided instruments for our children, or whether it was coming together with two individuals in this community of the arts and creating the Baltimore Design School, or whether it was thinking ahead in terms of wanting you as participants in our classrooms, and Bill 14412 that allows you all to participate in our classrooms and help our young people see their through the arts. I ask you to vote for me because I believe that the arts can change everything in the city in terms of helping us to heal from the wounds that we've suffered through April of last year. I know that as we work together, we will become more inclusive, that we will work together, that we will balance opportunities in the city. I ask you to vote for me because I'm passionate, because I love the arts and I love this city. Thank you.
Mr. Mosby?
I ask you to vote for me as champion of arts because Baltimore, we have one defining moment at this particular time to get it right. Statistically, I'm to be here. Statistically, growing up in a 3-bedroom house in Northeast Baltimore with 6 women, my grandmother who had a 7 education was the matriarch, sharing a bedroom with my mother to the 8th grade and my older sister, watching my mother every single day wake up at 4:30 a.m. to catch 2 buses to put food on our table. Statistically, I am not supposed to be here. Statistically, a mother that knew the importance of art. To participate in Super Saturdays and Twigs. I am not supposed to be here. Statistically, I am not supposed to be here. The first person in my family to go to college and come back to Baltimore and live in West Baltimore and Reservoir Hill because of Micah. Statistically, I'm not supposed to be here. Baltimore, we have one moment at this moment to elect a mayor that can connect the dots. A mayor that can go in any boardroom to a mayor that can go in any street corner. Mayor that's going to be a transformative change to the city of Baltimore all around. Statistically, I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm running for mayor, and I need your support. Please go to my website, mosbyformayor.com.
I'm a champion of the arts because I understand that art is both a window and a mirror. A window helps us see what is happening in our lived communities. our lived realities in a mirror, helping us reflect and think about ourselves, the world differently. Art is how we express ourselves and how we express who we want to be. And when I think about the plan that I'm offering, it's a plan focused on equity and access. It's a plan focused on education and making sure that kids have access and opportunity. It's a plan focused on making sure that we think about diverse and underrepresented artists community who have so many rich skills and gifts that aren't being honored in ways that they could. For a plan and a strategy, I put this plan out, and it was important to me that it is robust and that it focuses on what we can do in the first 100 days. I'm here to offer this plan because we can make this city live up to its promise and possibility. Thank you.
I ask for you to vote for me as a champion of the arts because I understand the arts. I'm not just saying this, I understand and value the history of the arts community in Baltimore City. When we look at the historic Pennsylvania Avenue and what the arts did for that, when we look at this being the home of Billie Holiday, and most importantly, I've been actively working to ingrain the community. So when you drive down West Baltimore Street and you drive past James McHenry Elementary School and you look to your left and you see the beautiful mural that's on the basketball court there that was done by a local artist, know that it was myself and my organization that did that work. When you go over to Poe Homes to visit and you look at that park and recreation playground there that the city told us they didn't have funding to redo, so my organization redid it. You see that I've been championing the arts, and you see 100 families that we brought together as part of doing that mural and the work that it did for those children to see that someone cared enough to invest in them and to expose them to something that they don't see on a daily basis. You know that Joshua Harris is a champion for the arts, and he's committed to creating true change and ensuring that Baltimore is really a city that is for all of us and not just saying.
When I lived in Portland, Oregon, I spent 2 years as a roadie for a punk rock band, so statistically, I'm not supposed to be here either. I'm champion for the arts because as someone who focuses on getting results, arts gets results. The statistics we heard earlier prove that. You are all living proof of that. And it actually costs less money to invest in the arts now than to deal with all the effects of not investing in it later. I'm a champion of the arts because I understand the power that the arts have on children. It is so hard to fit in this world, and not everybody can run a 4.40 or dunk a basketball. I was one of those people. I was funny and I was everything inside the house, but outside the house I was terrified until I did the arts and it brought me out of my shell. I know the arts can make a huge difference in the lives of our children and give them the opportunity to gain the kind of confidence that can allow them one day to sit up here and run for mayor. Patrick Gutierrez of BetterBaltimore.org. Thank you so much, and please vote for me.
Hey, check out this song. It's pretty good.
Patrick might even sing the song for you if you ask him nicely. So what do we need right now as a city? We need to heal, we need to talk to each other, we need to communicate and connect our neighborhoods. We need to grow not just as a city, but for everyone, touching every piece and the city. We need to be a world leader in innovation and entrepreneurship. And we need, above all, to engage our children. And there is one thing that can do all of those things, that is the arts. And I will be a champion for the arts because the city needs the arts, because I, as mayor, will need the arts and will rely on the arts community and the artists to make the city. And it's a matter of necessity. We will not move forward unless we recognize that. So I would love support, and I am excited to work with you in building a greater city. Thank you.
every ingredient to be successful in this city. And I am a champion of arts because my leadership has proven that. By not only creating the Baltimore Fund, but also the 1% for Art, expanding the mural program, the cultural tourism program that we created and board, but also the children's budget where we had after-school programs through Child First and so many activities. Also creating a children's budget that allowed for after community schools. But last but not least, I was able to send young people and adults who would have never had the opportunity through a scholarship that the city of Baltimore has been able to administer to Micah. People who have never been able to experience that opportunity as mayor. And so I ask you and encourage you to go on my website, SheilaDixonForMayor.com, and look at all of my plans because they are holistic plans that talk about how we change the city, how we move it forward, and how we build on the strength of the city, and that is the people of Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We're going to welcome Sammy back to the stage as our host.
So please join us in thanking our wonderful mayoral candidates who participate this evening. So excited to hear your ideas and vision, and of course we voters remember these are your promises to art and culture to the city. And also on behalf of citizen artists Baltimore, CJ and I would also like to invite all of you in thanking the following people. Hold your applause. First, and organizations. The Citizen Artists Baltimore Steering Committee and all the members on it. The Robert W. Deutsch Foundation and the Nancy Harrigan Fund at the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance, and also Kevin Brown from Station North Arts Cafe. Thank you.
We have one final word for all of you as audience members. We want you to take what you've heard tonight and become an arts voter. Really take in what you've heard. Take a look at citizenartistvote.com. Hear more of the expanded responses candidates. And most of all, be counted. Fill out the pledge cards that's in all your programs. It's a cute little perforated edge. And give that back to us because as you can see, you guys, we're full down here. We've got people standing up here. It's standing room only. This is a powerful arts community. Give yourselves a hand. We want to thank everybody who helped us come to these questions from our listening sessions throughout. And thank you all for being here again.
And we have a request. Don't leave yet. This is such a powerful convening. We're going to have a fun moment. We're going to invite actually our hosts and question presenters to come out. We're going to do an Alan Oscar moment. We're going to do a selfie with the candidates, and then we're going to selfie with the audience, and we're going to use social media to send out to the world the power of the creative community of Baltimore. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was the Citizen Artist Baltimore Mayoral Forum. Of questions. They actually did a good job of, relatively good job of keeping to the time frame. There were 11 candidates on stage. Joshua Harris showed up a couple of minutes late. David Warnock left a little early. There were a lot of questions. I would say almost all the questions were really arts focused in some way. The candidates made their case for how they would weave in arts education, arts funding into their administration if they were elected. There were a lot of proposals, a lot of ideas. A couple of candidates, I believe, talked about elevating sort of like an arts and culture person to the cabinet. I thought we might have had that already, but it's a popular idea here in the audience. Of course, I mean this is Micah, so you're definitely playing to a crowd that's obviously arts. Yeah, it was a good evening, a well-run event. At the end, you saw the organizers took a Oscars-worthy selfie, or maybe that was Grammys. I'm getting my cultural selfies mixed up here. So yeah, this is another live stream. Explainer.com, and if you find it in your heart and in your wallet to support my project, I would really appreciate it. Send a tip, a financial tip, a donation to paypal.me / City Explainer. I do have monthly costs tied to software and hardware, and I would appreciate any tips. This is my 5th or so Mayoral Forum webcast. I don't have one scheduled for the next week or so, but I'm always looking for events, especially now that we're in the prime of election season. I'm also hopefully at my next webcast I'll have new polling data, new survey of where the candidates are. It's my understanding that the Baltimore Sun will be coming out with a poll in a week or two, and I don't know if there will be other polls after that. It's also my understanding that I think around March 20th. 2nd, there's another financial disclosure deadline for campaign finance, and that's when we'll really get a firm handle on where the different candidates are. Several of them have raised well into 6 figures, and some of them have already started spending money on TV and radio ads, and I would imagine with a month and a half to go, we're going to start to see a lot of television ads, which of course remain to be seen. I think the conventional wisdom is that they can be effective at the local level. They could be pretty effective. You're essentially buying name recognition, and that's pretty. It's pretty pricey buy, but that's why they raise money from donors, is to reach these Baltimore City voters. This is an I've been to these now, and I've grown used to some of the candidates' stump speeches. I have to say, it's a pretty impressive time in our city's history, because this is a process that's playing out here. We haven't had, ever since Valley became mayor, We went from Martin O'Malley to Sheila Dixon to Stephanie Rawlings Blake, and it was just sort of like this sort of succession of city leaders, and so this is some people call this election the most important in a generation, and I think with the events of last year, with the uprising, with the really unfortunate escalation of the homicide rate, I'd be hard pressed to argue against that point. So anyway, I'll stop talking, and thanks again for watching, and please give a tip if you can, and I'll see you soon. So have a good night. Bye.
Send it with me and I'll forward it on and I'll put her in necessary. When I was younger, as much as I suffer from machines and they're so there's no conditions when I say that. I need to all these findings.